make sure it actually is recording here. Yep, I just started recording. Just so for all you guys know, I am recording this. So if you don't want us to see your haircut or something like that, make sure that you mute your camera, or if you don't want to be heard, make sure you mute your microphone. I'll go ahead and kick us off here. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll quickly turn it over to Sunil. But before I do that, I'll get us going here. So let me start by just welcoming everybody to this year's version of the Autonomous Snowplow Competition. And the goal today is to have a kickoff meeting. And I realize it's been us trying to figure this out, and me working with Sunil quite a bit on trying to figure out what this will look like. But what we're hoping to do is keep the competition rolling ahead and use a virtual competition in February 2021 to really kind of grow the competition for the following year in 2022. So this is just a nice little slide picture from last year. Hope everybody can see this, but I don't remember. That must be Case Western there, I think. Out getting ready to prepare to plow the snow here at Dunwoody College. So
that might have been the Laval there.
I was saying, not sure that's
Laval's there.
Yeah.
Oh God, see that's what I get for opening my mouth there. That's Laval's plow there. So, all right. So some introductions here. Again, my name's EJ Daigle. I'm the I guess we'd call me the competition host. Probably more so for the 2022 dynamic competition, and just trying to help Sunil try to put this thing together for the virtual competition. And then with that, Sunil, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and maybe any folks that you might have online.
Sure. I hope everybody can hear me okay. This is Sunil Sheikh. Many of you have known me from the past from building up the competition in the previous years, and welcome everybody today. I'm really excited that we can get started. Looking forward to another great year of competition, although as we will explain today, it'll be quite different than the past years. We're able to put on the event with a lot of help from EJ and his team. That's been a great service to the whole event in the past years as well as going forward. So we're excited about going forward with it. Just a quick reminder, our group is from the Institute of Navigation, which is a professional engineering society focused on the art and science of navigation. We've been running the event for the last 10 years, and we feel that we're looking forward to hopefully another 10 years of excitement and building towards fully autonomous robots that will be cleaning snow. Today, I think we're lucky to have many of our committee members on. I'll just read them off of what I was able to see. I believe Vibor Bageshwar is on, Kristen Sheikh, Hamid, Muqtazada, Isaac Allen, Jonah Rue, Mike Ward, and a new colleague of ours, Lee. Is there any other committee members that I might have missed? I appreciate everybody getting on. Maybe I can't hit the mute button fast enough, but I appreciate everybody getting on board today for the discussion. EJ and I are going to kind of share the discussion, so we'll be kind of going back and forth on what we've got. But with that, EJ, if you don't mind going on to the next slide. So we're very excited this year to have as many teams that have joined as we were uncertain on our own time or this past season, as many as we've gone through. Many of you have experienced lots of change, lots of disruption in your normal everyday work and life due to the pandemic, but we're really excited that all 12 teams got in this year. We've had a lot of interest, which is good to hear, and I'll just go down the list here, and I think that we have a lot of representatives from many of the teams here, but if we don't have everybody, that's fine. We'll, as EJ said, he will do the recording and we will get this out. So we'll just go down alphabetically. Feel free to shout out if you'd like to. Many of these are returning teams, but some of them are also new teams that we welcome this year. This year, again, we'll have Case Western Reserve University.
Hey guys, welcome to be back.
Great. Thanks to you guys for joining again. And of course, we have two teams this year, which is exciting to hear about, from Dunwoody College of Technology. That's great. Iowa State University, they're a returning team from many years past. Great to see you're here. Lake Area Tech from South Dakota, congratulations. I see there's two teams from your school this year. Great to have you involved again. Laval University, they entered last year and did very well for their first event, and we're excited about their enthusiasm. It's great to have you involved again.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there. A new team this year is from Minnesota State University. Congratulations to your entry, and we're glad to have you involved. Is anybody there from Minnesota State?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, it's very excited to join in these competitions.
Is this Min?
Yes, it is.
Oh, great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Yeah.
Congratulations. We're excited about your entry there.
Thank you.
Previous teams, another one is North Dakota State University, NDSU Bisons. Is anyone there from that team?
Yep, glad to be competing.
Great. Good to be back involved. Another longtime competitor, University of Michigan Dearborn.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great. And then the Snow Squirrels or the Snow Gophers, University of Minnesota.
Hi. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Hey, great. Nice to hear from you. And finally, but not least, we have a new entry this year from the University of Ottawa. And I believe you've competed before in the Canadian snowplow competition. Is that correct?
Yes, we competed this past year, but it turned out just to be a virtual submission. So it'll be our first, eventually in 2022, in-person competition.
That's great. Great. Well, great to have you involved. Nice to meet you.
Sunil,
go ahead, Ivor.
Did we get anybody from Iowa State or Lake Area Tech? I think those are the two that I know we got Dunwoody guys on here. Can someone from Dunwoody say hi other than me? Brendan.
Hey, yeah.
There we go. And Alex, you're on there, right?
Yep. Hey, everyone. Good to see you all again, and hello to the new teams as well.
Yeah. And I don't think we had Iowa State or Lake Area Tech. Was there anyone from Iowa State or Lake Area Tech? Sounds like that's a no. All right, go ahead.
Well, we'll get the recording out to them, let them catch up as we go forward. So go ahead, EJ, we'll go on to the next slide. So this is just a little explanation. I hope many of you had a chance to read the description document that we together and we sent out to the EJ who forwarded it to all the teams. If you have not received that after this event, please contact either EJ or myself and we'll send that out going forward. It's about a 4-page document that shows the basics of the competition and the concept that we pulled together to be able to host something like this. For first year will be virtual and the second year will be an actual dynamic event. Again, if you haven't received it, please reach out to one of us and we'll get it going. The committee is in a process of going through and defining the full event, and we have put this concept together, the concept document, and the next step will be the rule book. I know many of you are probably sitting there saying, well, when am I going to learn exactly all the details? Well, that's right where we are in the process. Just like many of you that have learned to deal with distance learning and the challenges of cooperating remotely, our committee is doing that also, and we're slightly behind, but we're still very excited that we're able to go through the event. So let me give you just a little of our ideas of what I've tried to do. We knew that after talking to Dunwoody or EJ and myself, as well as the committee, we knew that it would be very challenging for any of your teams to get together, put your team members into a laboratory, work on the robots, and get ready for an event in January. Of course, none of us can really predict how well the situation will improve over the next months or possibly go in the wrong direction. So we decided that this year, instead of trying to pursue something where we would have in-person events and the robots all competing together, instead we would try to build for a 2-year event. And that's primarily the concept that we've ended up. But we want to make it more challenging. So really what we're pursuing is asking all the teams to pair up, basically have 2 robots on a team, and work together on the same field to clean the snow. And that's the first year will be primarily getting those vehicles cooperating, and I'm assuming most of you will be doing that remotely, defining the communication systems, defining the interfaces for those, and trying to make a situation where you have the ability to operate on the same field together next year. You may have the opportunity, say, in the coming season or spring or summer that you could work together. We encourage that. Hopefully the pandemic will be less of an intrusion on everybody's lives, and we expect that that might be a good path for people to follow, but it's not required. This year, what we're going to focus on, as shown here, is trying to get you to work together. We like the term coordinate, cooperate, and collaborate as to have some meaning for all of you. As many of my colleagues on the committee here, including my good friend Vibor, who's been with us all these years, can attest that it's most engineering programs are built by people who aren't together. Many of the programs I've worked on in my career, I've had to work with people remotely and build systems without ever seeing them face to face. In fact, sometimes the test program or the actual flight is when you actually meet some people. So going through a scenario like this that we're proposing is not all that different than you'll experience when you get out into the industry. So finding ways for your teams to meet virtually with the people, phone calls, emails, passing data back and forth, passing design documents, passing videos is generally how we do it out in the industry. So it's a good experience builder for you, even though you think that this might not be the right way to build your robots. So that has been the focus of what we would like to pursue for this virtual event that we will hold in February of this year. And we'll get a little more into that in a minute here. The second year, for many of you that have been involved in the past years, will find it to be very similar. We will go through the same stages of the development, talk about having a preliminary design review in the fall timeframe once the program is started, or I'm sorry, once the actual competition is started next year. And we'll go through the status meetings and the general tasks that we've proposed in the past. And then we'll meet in person. Preliminary, we're saying probably in the early February of 2022, when we'll meet and we'll have the robots actually operate together. Now, we know that just to allow teams to be involved, we've actually provided two options. As many of you are starting your robots, I know there's new teams beginning, and there's some that may choose to join next year. We are putting in an option for teams to run with one robot on what we've called the single eye field. Many people that are familiar with the competition know that we've had usually two events or two types of snow fields that the robots will run on. And the first event next year in February 2022 would be the single eye, where a single robot would have the opportunity to compete. But the primary event would be the second day or the second set of runs, where we would have a triple eye field that'll simulate a driveway. The first one, the single eye, simulating a sidewalk, if you will. The triple eye event will simulate a driveway that would be cleaned by the two robots working together. So that's generally the overall concept, and the reasonings why we chose to pursue it this way. I'll keep going. If you probably it's easier if we have questions at the end. EJ, is that the best approach, or would you like to try and tackle questions as we go forward?
I think questions at the end are probably best. I think a lot of the questions will get answered as we go, I would imagine.
Okay. Okay, the second one. So then this year, many of you are interested in understanding what we're going to be asking to do. The primary goal for this year is for the teams to work together to produce a solution that your two vehicles would work together on the snowfield operationally in 2022. So most of the events, most of the competition requirements we're going to place on you are related to getting ready on that first step. The teams that are returning probably are familiar with the reviews that we have done before the actual event, and many of those times are events where essentially the committee members talking to the teams, talking about how your design is coming, how the mechanical part, the software part, the navigation, the control, guidance, etc., is working for your vehicle, and getting into the details of how you've designed your vehicle. This year, what we're going to be adding is a review of how you're communicating or how you're sending data between the two vehicles so that they know where they are on the course, how they're going to plan to clean the course, and how they're both going to return properly or effectively back to the garage when it's done. The plan right now, EJ, if you want to talk a little about the February 2021 idea, that's the week we're planning to hold these events.
Yeah, so the plan up until February 2021 would be for the teams to work together, obviously, remotely or however they can communicate, email, video conference. Microsoft Teams is a good example of a way two teams might meet together. But then we would come together that week, and I think I might even have another slide here with, let me just scroll ahead a little bit here. Sorry about this. Apparently I lost it here. There we go. But the idea would be that kickoff meeting is today. The team pairings, that's an important feature that we have to have, I would say, by the end of this week or very, very soon. The committee that Sunil is working with, they would have committee check-ins, maybe sometime in December, sometime in January. But then we would do some sort of virtual final presentation. So instead of like a preliminary design review that we've done in previous competitions, maybe we'd call this kind of a final design review or final design presentation as to how these things could work. And I think from my standpoint, I envision teams, the two teams coming online in a virtual environment like this with the committee answering, having maybe a presentation and then the committee asking questions as to how this is going to work. I also could foresee teams maybe using some sort of graphical representation or visual representation of how the two plows are going to coordinate, whether that's some sort of simulation software that you can put together or some sort of video showing the plowing strategy for the III, and then talking about how the two plows are communicating as they do this. I think at this point, I leave that up to the committee to kind of figure out what the presentation may look like there, or what they're going to score that based upon. But then there would be an actual prize based upon the two teams as far as the best presentation or the best concept. And there would be rewards this year as well, like there were in previous years. My guess is that, the goal, Sunil and I have talked about this many times, it would have been easy to say we're just not going to hold a competition this year. But by holding this virtual presentation, I think what we do is we hope to keep the teams engaged and then to really launch them on a build for the winter of 2022, January, February 2022. So now those two teams can perhaps build, or maybe as the COVID crisis becomes less of a concern, they might even be able to get together at that point and start to have their two vehicles communicate, whether it's in the summer or leading up to that February or January, February of 2022 competition for the dynamic portion of the competition. So I'm going to slide back here a little bit because I got ahead of myself here, Sunil. Just thought that based upon where we're at, that was probably a good way to kind of go at what that timeline looks like, and then continue to collaborate up until the dynamic competition in February of 2022. I'll talk. Yeah, I can talk about this slide if you want, real quick, Sunil.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be just fine.
Yep. So when we get to the dynamic venue, then in the, let's say, February of 2022, and the dates are still a little bit to be determined. I know there's some teams that were here last year, but I also know that there's many teams that weren't here last year. Not many, but a few teams that weren't here last year. As far as where we would hold the dynamic version of the competition, Dunwoody College Technology is right on the outskirts of downtown Minneapolis. So if you're familiar with downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, these are the main arteries leading into Minneapolis, 394 and Interstate 94. We are at literally the intersection of these two major interstates leading into downtown Minneapolis. If you were to look to the east of 94 in Lindale here, you'd actually see all the skyscrapers, the IDS Tower, the Basilica St. Mary. All the buildings of downtown would be over here. But our campus is kind of that one little that's kind of left in between the arteries that lead into downtown Minneapolis. Now, the nice thing about the competition is we have a large parking lot that's off to the left here, where the snowplow competition will be held. And then what we really enjoyed last year, I think most of the teams could chime in, but I think what was nice is we had a big parking lot on the north end of the buildings, and a whole machine shop area that we essentially cleared out to give the teams what I would call a pit area, where they could go in there. We have a tool crib where they could get tools if they needed to drill holes or they needed fasteners. Our tool crib was open the day of the competition, but really it is just a roll-up garage door and a short little jet to the left here, and then you're in the competition snowfield area. So plenty of parking the weekend of the competition, plenty area for the competition to take hold, and then a nice heated area where the teams can actually work on their vehicles, leave them overnight. Also for the dynamic, as we would do maybe a presentation that night or something, we'd have food available throughout the competition as well. And then all of that would be available through our campus here. The campus is fairly empty on the weekends. We don't have a lot of classes going on or anything, but we'll try to make this a big event. Last year we had Hockey Day Minnesota that was going on in Parade Park, or actually Parade Stadium area right across the street. So we got a lot of spectators that came in. We'll try to do the same type of thing this year, or in 2022, to try to figure out how we can market and get some more spectators into the campus for that. You'll notice we have a nice little Sisyphus Brewing. If you're into craft beers and you're of drinking age, there's a nice little spot where you can go sit down and have a beverage after the competition. But again, all of the food, hot beverages and things we're actually taken care of as part of that competition. And then Sunil, maybe I can hand this one over to you as far as some of the rules.
Absolutely, that's fine. I'd be happy to take over. So for many of you may have heard about the competition, if you haven't actually competed in the past, probably the first 9 years, we held the event, or first 8 years, I should say, we held the event with the St. Paul Winter Carnival, which is another winter event here in Minnesota. And what we found over the years is basically we've outgrown the area that they're able to provide as that event. And fortunately, Dunwoody gave us the opportunity to host the event at their facility, which is not very far from St. Paul. And I think last year the event ran really well. And as he mentioned, EJ, the pit area inside was a real added benefit to teams that were struggling in the past years, having to do the pits outside. The food and space for people to warm up was tremendous. So, and of course, they have a very, very large parking lot. So it's very easy for us to host the event there without the limitations that we are starting to experience with St. Paul. We really enjoyed the time with St. Paul Winter Carnival. Let me say anything negative there. And if anybody gets the opportunity from out of our state to come there, it's a great event to enjoy winter. But we're slowly growing, and we feel that it's time to move on. So with that, I think I'll get into some of the basic rules. And again, I'm going to refer everybody to, so our Institute of Navigation ran the competition for quite a number of years, and primarily the hosting and the operation. As we start to expand and grow a little, we'd like the different colleges to participate more. And as I said, Dunwoody has offered to do that. Dunwoody will likely, I won't put EJ on the spot, but will likely be putting a website about the events together. However, we still have the older Institute of Navigation website, which is www.autosnowplow.com. And if you look on there, for the teams that are looking for the resources, it has this year's competition on there, and it has last year's full rule book. So I would recommend teams that have not had the opportunity to read it yet to get that as a resource. We'll send some more information out to the teams afterwards, so you'll have the links and anything you're not aware of. But though that website does have the resources that you would need to start the event, to make sure that the vehicle you're designing will adhere to all the rules. And so the next couple of slides are some of the or some of the detail that's repeated in the rule book itself. And I'll go through some of these just so you're aware. I'll add a little bit about what we've described for the two-team event. So what we require is that each team be made up of a number of people, at least one of them an active student. So you could technically have a public team as long as one of the team members was a student. We ask you that you build the vehicle to the specifications that we have stated, and more importantly, adhere to all the safety requirements that we've put in the document. It has to be able to be stopped immediately. It has to have both a hand emergency stop where someone can touch a button and the vehicle's off, and also a remote button. And if you watch past videos and watch any of the photographs, you'll see how that's primarily done. We'll go through what we call qualification right before the full dynamic event to make sure the vehicle adheres to those requirements. But the goal of the vehicle is primarily to autonomously clear as much snow from the field as possible. So what will happen is you'll put your vehicle into what we call a garage area. Your team will get ready for a start. If you choose to have navigation aids, which we can clarify if you have questions about that are centered around a vehicle. Say, for example, you're doing a vision-based system and you'd like to put some markers around the field. Then once your 20-minute run starts, you'd be allowed to set up those aids and then start the vehicle. And the idea is to clean as much snow as possible in that 20 minutes. There's teams in the past that have been very successful doing it in several minutes. Other teams have taken the full 20 minutes, but it doesn't mean that one team scores better than the other. There's just bonus points for doing it as fast as possible. The most important part or aspect of judging is the amount of snow cleared. We do put several penalties that are either related to being inside the snowfield or potentially simulating objects that would be in everyday life. So we have, for those who have not been there, is we put up blue piping around the snowfields at a certain distance, and which I'll show you in a minute here on some diagrams. And those are considered the boundaries, and vehicles are not allowed to go beyond or touch those boundaries, which means they've lost their navigation capability and are not technically operating as they should be. We also put some fixed posts in the field. We call them obstacles, and those are simulating a tree or a parking meter or something that you would have to navigate or have your vehicle guided around that so that it doesn't hit those obstacles. If during your run you actually have a failure of any kind, either hit a boundary or your vehicle does some type of hiccup or doesn't know where it is, you are allowed to restart during your 20-minute run. And those account for penalties, but many times people have used those to their advantage to reposition the vehicle in the snowfield and get as much snow cleared as possible. One thing, a rule we've put down here that you'll see in the rule book is we do not allow anything to be expelled from the vehicle. So you can't throw out sand, fire, water, anything like that to help move the vehicle. Instead, it must be, the vehicle must contact the ground and move accordingly, either with wheels or tracks or some type of locomotion that gets it able to push the snow into the important areas. And then in the rule book, something to consider, it's not as appropriate for what we would consider the first year virtual event, which will be scored very differently. But the ultimate goal is to determine how you're going to account for your score through the algorithm that's in the rule book. And that's available if you take a look at it. If you could jump to, this screen, EJ. So in the second year, we would like the teams to actually operate together on the same field. And if you look on the lower left here, this was a competition that we simulated in previous years, actually on 4th Street to the St. Paul Winter Carnival. And I think that's the Michigan team, and I'm not seeing the second team there, but it was one of the other teams they cooperated with. And the idea was we had the teams clear a set amount of snow together, but not hit each other. And they were on the same single-eyed course with one of the or two of the middle white or snow sections removed, and the teams did that. And we called that the cooperative design event. It wasn't a competition at the time, but it did show us that we could get to this point in the robotic development where vehicles could work together. So of course, now this is where we're at today, and part of the situation that has come to us with the pandemic is it makes sense for us to try to push forward with that to go out for outer years for the competition. So in this first year, what we'd like you to do very soon is to partner with another school, either another school team, You saw the list earlier, and of course that'll be available to you. And I think EJ has actually sent out contact information to you, so you're aware. You would partner with a team that has another vehicle and start working together to come up with a system so that you would know where each of you are on the course and whose task was to clear which area. You'd share that data cooperatively between the vehicles, and as part of the preview before the actual event, judges will be analyzing your methods and determining your approach, if, whether or not it'll be effective, or basically giving you questions related to that. Let me back up one step that we haven't talked about. In previous years, we've done what we call a student team presentation, where you're allowed to get up into a front of a panel of judges and present your design. And we score that separately from the dynamic events, and prizes were awarded for those teams that did a very good presentation. But judges were there to help you throughout the competition determine what approach you're going to, give some feedback on some good ideas of how you might want to adjust it or improve on it. And we expect to be able to do that in this next year between the virtual event and the following year. And continue that. We'll likely, this has not been determined for the second year, but we will likely continue the thought of having a student presentation, because that's, we felt, has done well for teams in the past, to give the opportunity to discuss their vehicles instead of just going for the dynamic event. So EJ, unless I missed anything there, I would like to go on to the diagrams. Great, thank you. This is the diagram of what we call the triple I. The I is to represent the three I's side by side. That SnowPass is meant to emulate or simulate a driveway being cleared. If you look up to the upper right, there's a green labeled area, which is the team navigation area. So that's where the teams would stand outside the blue pipes, and the blue here boundary represents the outer boundary of the entire competition field. And your vehicle would be in what we call the starting zone, or the garage, in the upper right-hand corner. So you would place your vehicle in there, and in this case, next year, in February 2022, we would have two vehicles in this garage, and they would start out together and clear as much snow. Now, if you look at the different areas, we have what we call maneuvering areas, where your vehicle can maneuver around, and then areas where we want the snow to be plowed, meaning we don't want the snow anywhere in the garage or in the maneuvering zone or outside the boundaries. What we want is it moved off from the white areas into the plowed zone areas. And that's part of your competition task, and your goals is to get both vehicles to do that effectively. We're kind of excited to see two vehicles together, because in the past, people have pretty much gone up and down these paths, pushing to the left and to the right, and tried to get the snow there and just doing turnarounds. What we might see in next year is teams come up with a different strategy, and maybe go left, in this diagram, go back and forth to left and right to push it forward or onto either side of the plowed snow zone, or come up with a completely different approach that you might think would be very effective and very fast. So we're hoping that you have the opportunity with both vehicles to show us what are some good strategy to do that. In the past, we've had snow depths on the order of 5 to, I believe, 15 centimeters. That was allowed when the snow pit crew would be filling up the snow fields. We likely will have that again. That's the idea of that, is to emulate snow drifts that the wind might have blown, or some other way snow has piled up differently in certain areas. So you'll have that complication of having to plow snow that is not equal depth through the whole area. And as we mentioned before, we will likely have some stationary obstacles that you'll have to maneuver around to avoid hitting, to lose points due to the penalty. So that's the major field for the dynamic event. I'll bring up the single eye event. This is oriented, this is flipped 180 degrees if you're looking at it, but with the other diagram. But here in this case, the teams would stand outside at the bottom in the green labeled area. The vehicle would be in the garage directly above that, and would start the competition and run to clear that sidewalk path, that 10-meter path. and pushing the snow again to the left and right. Again, our motivation for including this in the second year in 2022 is to allow teams that might show up next year and might not have the opportunity to compete in the double vehicle event. Instead, they want to just be in the snowplow event overall, and they'll have the ability to run this single eye. We have not made a 100% decision, but we're also considering asking all teams to compete in this, including those that are operating separately, so that you have the opportunity to do as many runs as you can that weekend. It's also being decided whether or not we're going to offer 1 or 2 runs from each of the either single robot teams or the 2 robot teams to all the fields, so that you can combine that score and get the best run you can. Because we know there's chances where you might have a hiccup in one run, and we don't want that to be your only way of competing. We want to give you the opportunity to do more. So it's likely, I can't say it's confirmed yet, but it's likely going to be you'll have multiple runs, and the multiple run scores will be combined together to give your overall score. Hope that makes sense. Okay, EJ, unless there's anything else on those, if you want to go to the next slide, there we go. So this is a little light more detail on the vehicle configuration, the requirements, the capabilities that you must adhere to in what we call the final qualification review. That's done right when you come to the dynamic event, and we spend at least a half day or longer for teams to demonstrate that they've adhered to all our safety requirements. The big one is you must meet the dimensions. Length, width, heights are in the 2 meter maximum range. You must have tires without studs on them. You know, many places like to put chains and metal studs in their tires to be able to get enough traction on the ice. We don't allow that because of it would. Hello?
I think we just had somebody that was unmuted there. We're good,
Yeah,
Sam.
no problem. Just want to make sure it's not a question. Okay, and then one of the other requirements, we don't allow the vehicles to go faster than 2 meters per second, because we don't want them to be able to go faster than walking speed, basically. That's a requirement that you'll have to show how your software is designed to enforce that. Then there's requirements due to the power capabilities, how well it's grounded, the physical and the remote stopping switches that you must implement as part of your vehicle, the safety capabilities of it, and then just as operational, how does it navigate, how does it operate, and some basic checklists of capabilities there. So if you have any question on that, the best resource there is to go to your rule book, which defines the individual elements of those that you must adhere to, and then that is what was shown in the previous slide is the list the checklist that we go down to make sure all teams. We've never had a team, by the way, not adhere to these. So if you're really concerned, we try our best to make sure, give all teams opportunity. But what we can't do is allow a team that doesn't have a safety mechanism operational run. So that's one of your first tasks, is to make sure that as well as being autonomous, meaning the vehicle will run by itself, that the safety systems are operational. Thanks, EJ. So EJ had gone through this. I just kind of go through right now. We're in the competition kickoff. I'll give our apologies now. Obviously, we're behind where we would like to be as a committee and a competition, and that's solely due to the uncertainties that were faced based on whether or not we were going to have a competition and the challenges with the pandemic. But we're excited that we're still here and we're still going forward, and that the competition has so many teams. We really appreciate everyone, all the team schools coming on board and getting involved in the event. What EJ has put down here is we would like to know of your team pairing soon. And the only reason we're doing is that we're encouraging you to get going as soon as possible. We know that it's holiday season coming up, as well as probably the end of many of your semesters, and that's a challenging time to get a lot done. So we would like to impose a a deadline for you to reach to get by the end of this week. Is that right, EJ? That Friday, you let us know. If you have a challenge and not able to pair, then we would ask that you let us know, and we'll do what we can to help facilitate teams getting together. We don't want to require anything about that. We've let the requirements for the team pairings to be a little bit loose this year. In fact, we are allowing robots within the same school to pair together. We encourage you to go outside your school to pair because it might make the experience for the students a nice opportunity to work with a different school. But I know that it may help. I know the two schools, Lake Area Tech and Dunwoody, both have 2 robots at the same school. So that they may choose to do that, and we're not limiting that as a requirement. But the rest of the teams that only have 1 robot in school, we ask that you start talking to others to pair up and work together in the upcoming year. In the next month, December, we'll have several check-in meetings just to find out where you are and how you're doing. I guess, sorry, it'll be both December and January. And we'll be getting ready for what we will call the final presentations or the virtual presentations in that first week of February. And the details of that should be coming out soon, and we'll give you more of what you need to work for that. EJ had a good description. What if you think about what we can ask you to do for a virtual presentation? You could have some of the teams that have operational vehicles. You could have some video of your vehicle shown pushing some snow so that the judges could say, okay, great, they've got hardware actually working. If you don't have a vehicle, you could come up with some animations or some simulations of how you plan to pull all that together and how you want to operate at the actual event in February of 2022. All of that will be scored together, and we will work to have teams present that idea to us so that in the minds of the judges that you have a well thought out design, and then you can implement that throughout the months of March through February 22nd. March 2021 all the way to February 2022 of when you can actually implement your hardware and do more demonstration, and we will all work up to that dynamic event in February 22. Okay, next slide. All right, well, this one is just to remind people of the fun we've had in the past year. Sometimes it's a little crazy, sometimes it's a little wild, sometimes people wear funny shoes. There's been lots of fun at the parades. We know that many of you are challenged with school. I mean, the professors as well as the students are having a hard time with distance learning, and we know it's very different life for many people. So this is just to inspire you to remember the good times we've had in the event, and they'll come back at some point in everybody's life. So with that, I think we have most of what we needed to present today in the kickoff, and I knew we were going to probably have quite a number of questions. EJ, do you want to coordinate questions from the teams? Is that the easiest way, or how would you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I think we could just go around maybe to each team and see if there's any burning questions right now. Maybe we can start with Case Western.
So I don't really have a kind of a question, more like a suggestion or a thought to other teams that maybe figuring out who you're planning on pairing with may be kind of a function of what you're planning on using for your high level drive or your navigation software that you're kind of using. I know that we and a lot of other teams have used ROS, which makes things a little bit more convenient, but teams that are looking to get involved together might be good to have the conversation early about what you're using so that we can kind of not have one team using, some sort of like microcontroller level logic, and then another team is using a full-blown x86 ROS, whatever. Just kind of as a sampler.
That's very helpful. I think that's a great suggestion. So one of the things we haven't done in the past for previous competitions, which is not a negative, it's just meant to keep the competition going forward is we don't really share, we as a committee don't share what one team is doing over another, just to keep the competition fair. However, this year we know it's very different and many teams will have to share that information. So you bring up a really good point. It might be something you want to think about, how your hardware is going to be configured, what navigation aids you're going to use, what software you're utilizing. We put in that small concept document what type of communication architecture you're going to build. Is it going to be a Wi-Fi source, or is it Bluetooth? Is there some other RF interface you'd like to have? You could have, if you choose, a wired interface. You could actually have both vehicles wired together if you want. There's nothing wrong. You could have them mechanically linked together. There's no requirement at this stage from the committee of how you need to interface, but you do need two vehicles operating independently. So thanks for that input. Is there anything else from your side? Any other questions?
Not from us.
Great, thank you.
And Case Western, I assume that means you guys have not selected a pairing partner yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I think the next teams would be Dunwoody teams. I know we got Brendan and I don't know who else, maybe Alex. Do you guys have, do any of the Dunwoody folks have any questions?
As of now, no. It's still kind of processing and thinking of what we can do. But yeah.
And I got a chat from one of the other Dunwoody guys saying not at the moment. So, and is the plan, I think the plan, I can speak for Dunwoody probably a little bit. I know the Dunwoody teams are planning to pair together. However, I also know that they're open to, if we end up with an odd number of teams for some reason or something like that, I know at the last minute they would also be willing to pair up with a team if somebody finds them without a partner as well. So I'll just throw that out there, that they've kind of already in our meetings talked about the fact that they'd be willing to do that. So I think Laval would be next. Laval.
Yes, I have one question about the simulation, because we want to simulate snow, but it's very difficult. So do we have to simulate snow to show our concept is working?
You mean snow inside the software simulation?
Yes, inside. We will use Gazebo. I don't know if you know, but it's because we can use it with ROS.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I don't think that would be required. It would be helpful to the judges to see if you can build as part of your animation where you're sweeping away snow or clearing, or at least you show the trail of the vehicle of where it's been. That would be helpful. But actually trying to put snow and well, let me ask you this: can you put reactive forces on your vehicle through that simulator?
I think it's possible, yes. Maybe we will simulate snow, but with small cubes, for example, so we can push something.
Yeah, so I don't think it would be a requirement at all to simulate the actual physical snow, but if you could put the friction of the surface or the load on the blade of some kind to be reactive for your dynamics, those would be a way to describe to the judges how you've explained that your vehicle has to push through that snow. So if any type of simulation that you're willing to do or able to do would be great. The complexity is up to you, but I don't think there'd be a requirement to actually put different types of snow on the ground in your simulation and emulate that.
Do we have also to simulate the communications like Wi-Fi or other type?
You can probably, if you can, yes, but I'm guessing you. So let me just throw this out. I'm not proposing you have to do this, but you might consider, say you had your conceptual vehicles running on 2 laptops or Raspberry Pis or something, and you had some communication source that you're going to use for the vehicles operating between those 2 physical computers. That would be a way, again, to show the judges that how your approach is working. It doesn't have to be part of your operational simulation, but you could emulate that type of communication through that setup or example hardware. Does that make sense?
Yes, okay. Thank you for your answer. I don't have any other questions for now.
Okay. Thank you.
I think our Minnesota State folks from down in Mankato, if there's any questions from Minnesota State.
No questions from us, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for joining. If you have questions for any team going forward, please reach out to either EJ or myself. Again, EJ will provide the contact after this, and we're happy to help share any kind of questions or come up with solutions for anybody that's going to challenge. I have one or two ideas from my committee. I was going to share questions they posed to us that I'll share at the very end here that some of your teams might think about afterwards.
I think North Dakota State's next on the list here.
I just had one kind of small question that it seemed like you guys might not even be sure about yet. But for the single I and triple I competition, would both robots for the triple I need to be registered for the single I, or could you have a robot compete in triple I and not in single I, and vice versa too?
That's a great question. I don't think we've made that requirement yet. I think that we are trying not to limit it today. We may have to make that decision next year, but I personally don't want to impose too many restrictions that stop teams from operating one way or another. The reason we're doing the virtual event this year is to encourage teams to work together, to work remotely, and collaborate. So we would like to see that as part of the event. However, if a team came to us, I'll tell you a little secret. We were worried there was going to be an uneven need of teams, or an odd number, I should say. And that meant that one team might not have a pairing, or we're going to have to share a pairing between teams. If somebody came to us this year and said, I only really want to participate in the single I don't think we would be against that. We would just encourage you to do as much as you can in the virtual event. Whether or not next year a team, you have your two vehicle teams and one decides not to do the single I, right now I would say that would not disqualify either team.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that's clear. Yep.
I think Michigan Dearborn is next.
I can't think of any questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and then University of Minnesota?
No, I'm good. I don't have any questions. Thanks.
And how about our friends up in Ottawa?
No, there's nothing from my end, unless Iman, who just jumped on the call, has something.
And again, a reminder for anybody that came on the call late, I am recording this, and I'll send you guys out a link to this video. So if you had somebody that was unable to attend or joined us late, you can watch this video, as much of it as you want, at a later time as well. And then the other question is, did I get anyone from Iowa State or Lake Area Tech on the line?
From Lake Area. I'm from Lake Area. Yep.
Okay, Lake Area. I don't know how much if you guys came out a little late, or if you listen into most of this, but did you guys have any questions at Lake Area?
I probably do, but I don't know any right at the top of my head.
Okay, all right. And I will say, for everybody involved, I've been working with Brooks out of Lake Area. There is an idea floating around that we would hold the 2022 competition at Dunwoody. But we also are considering, I talked to Sunil about this a little bit as well, perhaps hosting the 2023 competition out at Lake Area Tech out in South Dakota. So there may be a chance to move this thing around in the future as well. But I don't want to, again, volunteer anybody to do anything at this time, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind if you think your school might be a good place to host this in the future. So Sunil, I think we've got all the questions. I don't know if you want to bring up some of the questions from the committee.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks to all the teams, and also thanks to Dunwoody and the opportunity for Lake Area Tech in the future. It might be that we start having a traveling competition. As many of you know, we were up in Toronto a couple of years ago, So if Laval or University of Ottawa would like to host it in out years, we'd be happy to travel across the border again. At least we've solved most of those problems. So here's one of the questions. The teams, I think I would just pose it as some thought questions for you. What happens if one of your team vehicle doesn't work? Meaning you're both in the garage and you're about to start and then one doesn't work. How do you try to solve that problem? We don't know yet what the penalty will be that, or what happens if one vehicle stops out midfield? What would you do? Those are probably going to be some questions we're going to pose for the virtual competition. And just some ideas to think about is how would you solve it as a commercial venture? If you had a vehicle that you were selling or a set of vehicles, what would you do there? For example, we have a sponsorship from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and they're very interested in future vehicles like yours that you're building for clearing airport runways, to do that continuously when we're in snow events. And what would happen if one vehicle stopped out there? What would you do? So mitigation would be of how to operate now that you're not the only vehicle on the surface there. How do you maneuver around another vehicle that almost becomes an obstacle? Would be something for you to consider together as you build your vehicles towards an operational system. Like I said, I don't know if there's going to be a penalty for that right now, but we know there's a penalty if both vehicles do not return to the garage. But that's one of the challenges. And another is what would happen if you had, similar to the other one, but what type would you have is a communication disruption of some kind. Either a wireless link goes down or some other approach that you're using, like an optical system, a camera system gets cloudy or covered with snow. What would you do? So think about your backup plans for building an operational system that would try to resolve itself during that type of operation. And those are good things to start thinking about how you would solve those and present at the virtual presentation in February. And one last thing, I think the virtual presentations would be with pairs of teams. So you would have to work together to present. It'll likely be a slideshow or videos or however you'd like to present, but it would likely in coordination with both team members, so both schools, if you will, that would have to do that together. And that's important for you to think, how are we going to do that to get to at that event in February, and how are we going to coordinate and practice ahead of time so that we put together a good presentation. EJ, I think it's getting close to our time, so I think I'll leave it at that in terms of other questions. But I'll give just 30 seconds. If any of my committee members have anything that they'd like to add, like Vibor or any of the others that attended.
Hi, everyone. This is Vibor. Just maybe for the virtual presentation, if I may make a suggestion in addition to what Sunil has suggested. If you have a working vehicle, actually showing us via video or recorded video in an operation, plowing the single eye, for example, would be something that would be really good for all of us, just to see your vehicle in action. In fact, if you don't even have a vehicle yet, or if you can just show us something physically about your vehicle, that would be great. So just kind of bear that in mind, please.
Thanks, Vibor. Any other committee input, questions? Okay, we'll let it at that. EJ, I think we're good on our side. Thanks everybody for attending.
Yeah, before I wrap up, folks, I just want to let you know the next thing I'm going to do is I will get this video posted so you can share it with team members. I'll email everyone a link. I'm also going to re-email the contacts for the main contact for each team. If you don't get an email from me, or if you are looking for that contact list, it might be that I don't have your email. So by all means, reach out to me, and I'll actually right now post my email address in the chat on this. So if anybody wants to get on my my list, this chat will still be open when we're done. So you can chat away or email me to edagel@dunwoody.edu, and I'll make sure that you get on that mailing list for both for the video email link And then also for the request for the pairings with the contact for each team member, each team. So that's all I've got, Sunil.
Okay, well, thanks very much, EJ, for hosting again today. Teams, we're just super excited that you all joined and looking forward to a complex but hopefully rewarding challenge for all of you going forward in the next year and 2 years. We'll have more detail on the rules and the ideas of the presentation coming up, as well as some more meetings with the teams. But if you have questions, as EJ said, feel free to contact us and we'll try to get the information all back to the teams as soon as possible. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and look forward to meeting you virtually at some point throughout here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.